It starts like any other night. The quiet hum of a suburban neighborhood where porch lights flicker and distant car engines hum softly in the cool evening air. Inside one of those houses, you sit on the couch, watching the minutes tick by. The children are asleep, the house is dark, and a creeping stillness has settled over everything. You try to brush off that uneasy feeling, but something about the silence feels different tonight, heavier. And then, the phone rings. Welcome to the Still of the Night. In tonight's episode, we are unraveling one of the most unsettling urban legends ever told, The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. It's a kind of story you might have heard whispered when you were younger, passed down from one friend to another. You maybe even told it yourself. But as we dive into this legend tonight, you may find that there's more to this than just a scary story. It's a tale that lurks in the back of your mind and makes you wonder, what if this happened? What if that old story you heard when you were younger wasn't just fiction? What if danger was closer than you ever dared to imagine? It's a Friday night in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The streets are lined with identical houses, each with perfectly trimmed lawns and porch lights that flicker gently in the darkness. Inside one of these homes, a teenage babysitter settles into the living room couch, her legs tucked beneath her as she watches an old black and white movie. The children, a brother and sister, have been put to bed upstairs, their small bodies lost in the folds of heavy blankets. The house is still, almost unnervingly quiet, save for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. The babysitter glances at the time, 10:15 p.m. The parents had said they'd be back around midnight, plenty of time to relax. She wraps herself in a throw blanket and lets the drone of the television wash over her, comforted by the familiar glow. Then the phone rings. She jumps slightly, the sound cutting through the silence. She reaches for the receiver, wondering if it might be the parents checking in or maybe a friend calling to chat. But when she picks up, there's nothing. Just a moment of unnerving silence. And then a voice emerges, low and raspy.
Have you checked the children?
Her breath catches in her throat. The words are odd. She tries to shake it off, laughing nervously to herself as she hangs up. It must be a prank. Kids from school trying to scare her. But even as she convinces herself, a small, uneasy knot begins to form in the pit of her stomach. She sinks back into the couch, but the comfort she felt before is gone. The movie on the screen seems distant now, her ears tuned instead to the quiet creaks and groans of the house. And then the phone rings again. She answers, her voice trembling just slightly. This time there's no pause. The same voice with an edge of impatience.
Why haven't you checked the children?
Her gaze instinctively shifts towards the stairs. The hallway leading to the children's bedroom is dark, as if the shadows are stretching longer and thicker than they should. She hangs up quickly, her hand shaking, and rushes to check the front and back doors, making sure they're locked. But a sense of vulnerability seeps into her thoughts. Could someone have gotten in? Could they already be inside? When the phone rings a third time, she snatches it up, her voice frantic as she yells, "Who is this? What do you want?" But the voice is calm, almost amused.
I'm closer than you think.
This time she calls the police, shaking as she explains the situation. They tell her to keep the caller on the line if he calls back, so that they can trace the source. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours. She feels exposed, her nerves fraying with each passing second. Then the phone rings again. Her hand is unsteady as she lifts the receiver to her ear. Before she can say anything, the voice is there again.
You really should check the children.
Her pulse races, her body tensing as she struggles to keep the line open. Suddenly, The phone clicks, the line goes dead, and the house is plunged back into silence. Moments later, the phone rings once more. This time it's the police. There's urgency in their tone, a breathless quality to their words.
You need to get out now. The call is coming from inside the house.
She freezes, a wave of terror washing over her. The realization crashes down on her. He's not outside. He's in the house, somewhere upstairs. But what happens next depends on who's telling the story. Some say she drops the phone, her mind racing with images of what might be waiting in the darkened rooms above. She runs towards the door, her breath ragged, and flings it open just as the police arrive, sirens blazing, lights flashing. They storm inside, finding a man hidden in a closet upstairs, a weapon in his hand. The children are found unharmed, though still asleep, oblivious to the horror that unfolded just beyond their bedroom door. In other versions, the story takes a much darker turn. They say she doesn't make it out. The police find the babysitter's lifeless body at the bottom of the stairs, a trail of blood leading back to the children's room. There, they discover the kids too, victims of an unseen terror that struck in the still of the night. And then there's another version, even more sinister. When the police finally reach the house, they find the babysitter in a state of shock, rocking back and forth on the living room floor. The children are gone. Their beds are empty, as if they were never there to begin with. The man inside the house? Nowhere to be found. It's as if he vanished into thin air too, leaving nothing but the lingering echo of his voice on the line.
Have you checked the children?
Each retelling seems to deepen the sense of dread, shifting from one chilling outcome to the next. But no matter how the story ends, the fear is always the same. That gut-wrenching realization that the danger wasn't outside, but already inside. Close enough to hear every breath, to watch every move, close enough to touch. And this story has sent shivers down countless spines, but where did it come from? Urban legends like the babysitter and the man upstairs often arise from real events or shared fears. This legend is thought to date back to the 1950s or 60s, possibly even earlier, inspired by true crimes where babysitters were threatened or harmed. One tragic case often linked to the legend is the murder of 13-year-old Jeanette Kreisman in 1950. She was babysitting when an intruder broke into the home, a crime that has remained unsolved and continues to haunt that local area. Another version from here in the UK involves a babysitter who received a call warning her about a dangerous intruder hiding somewhere in the house. Each retelling changes certain details, but the core of the legend remains the same. The babysitter is vulnerable, the threat is near, and safety is just an illusion. And the story of the babysitter and the man upstairs didn't stay just a story. It made its way into popular culture, adapted into films, TV shows, and books. The story gained wide recognition in the 1979 horror film When a Stranger Calls, which took the tale to new heights. The opening scene is regarded as one of the most terrifying in horror cinema, where the babysitter is played by Carol Kane, and the caller taunts her with sinister glee.
Hello?
Why haven't you checked the children?
So why does this legend endure? Well, it's because it taps into something primal, the idea that we are not alone even when we think we are. We seek safety in our homes, but the thought that danger could be hiding just upstairs is a fear that I think many of us share. But why does this strike such a deep chord in us? And why do we find the idea of a stranger hiding in the house so terrifying? Other than the obvious that, you're gonna have to find someone and you might not end up winning. Psychologists suggest that it plays on several of our primal fears. The fear of being watched or stalked, while the notion of an unseen threat hidden within our familiar surroundings taps into that fear of the unknown. It's also a tale that preys on our trust. As a babysitter, you are entrusted with the safety of children and the home. The idea that a sanctuary could be violated so easily, that someone could penetrate the boundary of our personal space, strikes at the core of our sense of security. And there's something about the creepy voice on the phone. Those warnings feel intimate and invasive. It's not just a random threat. This is personal. And that's why, decades after it was first told, this legend still continues to haunt people. So the next time you're alone at home, the clock ticking away, and the phone rings, ask yourself, what if it's not just a wrong number? What if the call really is coming from inside the house? Thank you for tuning in to tonight's episode of The Still of the Night. If you have enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and like and leave a comment. And until next time, friends, stay safe, stay curious, and always check the children.